Hello friends, you are about to watch the recording of our webinar, Excel to Power BI. Click on the button here to sign up for future webinars. We conduct these each month and plan to cover new material with updates to Power BI. This recording is about 40 minutes long. There was more than an hour of additional questions and answers, which we have trimmed to keep the video brief. Sign up for our future webinars where you can participate in the Q&A sessions.
Welcome to the webinar. I'm Avichal Singh, just go by Avi. At Power Pivot Pro, we have been blogging, training, and consulting on Power Pivot back since 2009. Go check out our website, powerpivotpro.com, for all we have to offer, or drop us an email at empower@powerpivotpro.com. Now, at times, you may have pondered over some big questions in life. What is it? Why does it exist? How best to lead our lives? And what comes after? We're going to tackle the Power BI version of those questions. What is Power BI? Why use Power BI? Why bother at all? How best to use it? And what's coming next for Power BI? Really, we'll be focusing a lot of attention on how to use Power. The rest of the sections will keep somewhat brief, as they have been covered pretty much in past webinars and a blog as well. Let's start with what is Power BI. Power BI, the term, can have one of two definitions. The first one is the powerbi.com. That's BI in the cloud, software as a service. Think salesforce.com. These days, when you hear Microsoft talking about Power BI, they're almost exclusively talking about powerbi.com. Although that's not the only Power BI in town, there's another one. Power BI can also be used to refer in general to the Power Star toolset. And we have a few there. We have Power Pivot, Power Query, Power View, Power Map, and in some sense, powerbi.com itself can be considered a part of that toolset. For this webinar, we will focus on powerbi.com. However, I want you to realize that that is not the only way or the exclusive way to leverage the amazing power of this toolset. It's kind of optional. It's a great option, but it's still optional. And of course, the Power toolset predates powerbi.com. These tools have been around for a lot longer and have been used very successfully out there. So I would focus on powerbi.com, but I would be happy to take questions in the Q&A section if you're not using powerbi.com and still want to use this toolset. Just a word on terminology. A lot of people who have been familiar with these terms, Power Query, Power Pivot, Power View, they step into this new world and go, whoa, everything is gone. Well, it's not gone. It just has new names now. So there's Get Data, Data Model, Report. I think it really simplifies things. There's no Power word soup. It's Power BI, and then you have different actions that you perform using your tools. Why use Power BI? Well, not too long ago, when it came to BI, the choice was really between a rock and a hard place. Now, on the x-axis here, you have a lifetime of a project, think a BI solution, and on the y-axis is the time and money cost, all the time and money you invest in that project. Now, you could start with spreadsheets, Microsoft Excel, great choice, low cost, very agile, very quick, you can change around things, it's got that great interface, works great. However, over time, the costs simply escalate. Things devolve into Excel hell. Now you have sheets and sheets and all filled with formulas. Oh gosh, it's hard to debug, hard to maintain, hard to update and add business logic, new data sets, hard to refresh, hard to implement security. Really quite a nightmare. The other option was traditional BI tools, and these were big name BI tools by big name companies and came with a big ticket price too. So there was a big upfront investment, but the promise was of low cost once the project was implemented. That would have worked, except for the fact that the returns on this whole endeavor was totally questionable. You're spending millions of dollars, probably 6 months, a year. I've even heard of multi-year projects. And even then, are you really getting what you set out to get? The problem was twofold. One, it's nearly impossible to capture what the user really needs. You probably have seen this pretty famous cartoon which shows how each stakeholder thinks about what the project requires slightly differently. They have a different interpretation, understanding, whereas the customer wanted something entirely different. Happens all the time. Now, even if let's imagine you were able to capture your customers' input and read their brain, just capture that perfectly. Even then, you had a problem, because you would go back to the user and say, hey, project is done, here it is, looks awesome, and they'll say, yeah, that does look great, but that's what I needed 6 months ago. Business has changed, business moves on. And what do? You kick off another one of these big, long, expensive cycles? Gosh, it's hard. It's you're never going to win that battle. You're never going to be agile enough with those tools. And what is a business user doing in the interim? They're not standing still. They got to run the business. So hey, they're plucking some data from the traditional BI, but then they have their own mapping tables, their own business logic that they layer upon. They have their other data sets that they pull in. Where are they doing all this magic, you ask? Well, the tool of their choice. Of the typical business user, that's Microsoft Excel. But we know exactly where that road is headed. And if you wait long enough, you see this going on in a giant cycle. Excel hell, somebody smart comes in, thinks about a traditional BI tool, that doesn't really deliver, things go back to Excel. 3 or 5 years later, somebody else sees that and says, hey, let's do this tool, my tool of choice. What's really the way out of this? Now, what if I told you there was a tool which was low cost but offered sustained agility and scalability? Really the best of both worlds? Well, that is the promise of Power BI. Now, I realize this sounds too good to be true. I also realize pretty much any other BI vendor out there has the same pitch. They all sound the same. Buy our solution and all of your problems are solved. Well, I'll just say two things in that regard. For one, the Excel effect, and that's not to be undermined. That is big. There are estimated to be 500 to 750 million Excel users worldwide, and Power BI builds upon Excel. Really, any BI tool which sets out to replace Excel is fighting a losing battle. And the next thing I'll say is that the proof is in the pudding. Power Pivot and Power BI is best experienced, not explained. So I would say go ahead and try it. Our typical on-site engagement when we go out to a client, and we have gone to numerous Fortune 500 companies, is 3 days. It's 3 days long. And it's not 3 days of discovery, of exploration, of, God forbid, a elongated sales pitch. No, we get down there and start pulling in data and start building. And by the end of day 3, we have a working solution. A few months ago, I was at a healthcare company, and near the end of day 3, as I was finishing up the solution, they would stand up and start clapping. Why was I getting the standing ovation? Well, because what we had built there in those 3 days, they had been waiting on their BI team to deliver for the past 2 years. That's the promise of this tool. Again, low cost, agility, scalability, 10, 100, thousands of users. Now, how to use Power BI? I did say I'm going to spend most of the time on this section. There are 3 activities. One way to look at it is parsing into 3 activities. Author, publish, and then share or visualize. You have a few authoring tools. You can use Excel with the add-ins, Power Pivot, Power Query. You have Power BI Desktop, that's the new sheriff in town. And you can just go to powerbi.com and connect online directly to sources, and that essentially builds a data model for you. Hosting, we will be focused on powerbi.com, but there are other options, SharePoint, SSAS Tabular, on-prem options. So I wouldn't talk about them. Again, I can pick that up in Q&A if you're interested. And then you can build multiple visualization, reports, dashboards, hopefully share it using web and mobile. All of that is possible using powerbi.com. If you're using another hosting option, it will depend on that. Now, the critical piece of this is the authoring part, is the data model. So I want to make that clear that the data model, or so I'll call Power Pivot, now you wouldn't see the name, but still the concept is the same. Relationships, measures, all the good stuff. That is the center of Power BI universe. That's what powers it all. So you want to be able to pull in all your business data into your data model and then power multiple reports, multiple visualizations from that. So if that is the heart of Power BI, well, how do you go about building a data model? So tools of choice are Excel with the add-ins, Power BI Desktop, and PowerBI.com Online, where you connect directly to services. I think the third one isn't a serious contender right now, because once you connect to those services, if you just go on PowerBI.com and connect to MailChimp, Google Analytics, great, it gets something out of the box, but I found no way to continue building that model, to augment it, to pull in other data sources, to define new measures, relationships. So I wouldn't really count it as a serious option. So really, I consider between Excel and Power BI Desktop. How do you choose between the two? If you have a new data model, you're starting from scratch, and you're all in for PowerBI.com, you know that's the direction you're going to go, choose Power BI Desktop. And of course, with that, you would get the latest and greatest features. They roll out a monthly release, and so you have a goodie bag to open every month. On the other hand, if you already have existing data models using Excel Power Pivot, as I said, it has been around a lot longer, since 2009, no urgent need to switch to Power BI Desktop necessarily, especially so if you want to keep your options open. Maybe PowerBI.com, you can still leverage PowerBI.com, that's still an option. You can upload your models there, you can publish them there. However, maybe you're using SharePoint as well, or SSAS Tabular, or some other means. Then just stay with Excel Power Pivot. Of course, the compromise you make is that you live with the current feature set. Now, I'm not going to be able to teach you in this webinar how to author a data model. That's a topic in itself, kind of hard to fit in a 1-hour webinar given everything else we're covering. But there are tons of training options available to you. You can find all of those on our site at powerpivotpro.com, starting with a blog, which has 800 plus blog posts about pretty much any Power BI topic under the sun, focuses more on Power Pivot, but it has Power Query, new Power BI Desktop, and all the good stuff. Then you have the book. It's a #1 selling Power Pivot book or data modeling book on Amazon. It's $10 for its digital version. Best $10 you'll ever spend. We have a few other training options. Pick whatever fits your needs best. Again, check our site or drop us an email if you want to find out more. So assuming you have your data model, right, you have it ready, what do you do? How do you use that on PowerBI.com? Let's see that in a demo. So I'm using screenshots here just because I've experienced that allows me to cover a lot more ground. But if it's fully functional, it's GA, it's ready to go. So these are the steps we'll cover in our demo. We'll connect to some data, create reports, create a dashboard, share it, look at the mobile app, talk about refresh. Signing up is a breeze. Just go to PowerBI.com, enter your work email address, and just click this button, follow the directions. Once you're in and you click Get Data, you would have multiple options. I'll talk about the organization option later on, but if you click on Services, you would see multiple services you can connect to, and it builds a data model, reports, dashboards automatically. Really cool. But I think it's meant more for like a demo to wowing audience. And the challenge is right now, once I do this, there's no way for me to continue building on that model, add relationships, add measures, at least not that I've found out. Therefore, I don't really consider it a serious option. You can also connect to databases and build models from there. But really, for most Excel users, you would be looking at this option. Connecting to files. Now if I click that, I can select local drive or connect to OneDrive. If I connect to OneDrive, that makes it somewhat convenient. I can open the model. Usually I have OneDrive synced to my computer, make changes to it, save it back to OneDrive, and it's going to be synced back to PowerBI.com. Any changes I made are going to be available. For local file, you would have to update it again. Although I have seen a slight lag with the OneDrive, with the new functionality, new updates being available on PowerBI.com after I've made them. So take your pick, both work great. I'm going to choose local file, and on my computer I have this AdventureWorks.xlsx, the data set we use for all our training classes, and it has an existing Power Pivot model I built in Excel using the Power Pivot add-in. It has the dashboard in Excel with using all the measures, and it has the Power View, a set of Power View reports as well. So I click on local file, select my file, click open, and then it uploads the file. You might get a brief message about the import in progress, but once it's done, you should see 3 new elements. One, you would see the data set, right? This kind of represents the data model, right? It has a different name. You can't quite see it online. You can't see the data model, but that's what it represents, and it gives you a few options to work with it. The next one is reports. Now for reports, if your Excel file had Power View sheets, which mine did, then it brings those in, and you can see I had multiple sheets and it has brought all of those in as a report. And lastly, you have the dashboard. We'll talk more about dashboard. Right now it's empty. Let's talk more about reports. Let's see how we can create additional reports. The way you can do that is either you click on the data set, or you click on these ellipses and click Explore. That is going to give you a blank canvas which you can draw on, and you draw on that using the field list on the right. This should look very familiar. It works pretty much the same way a pivot table field list would work in Excel. So you can expand, click, select items, and after that essentially build a pivot table, but then you can choose your visualization, and there are lots of visualization options available here, lots of settings as well. Once you've done that, you can click and save it, and there you go, you have your new report. Once you have one or more reports, you can start creating dashboards. You do that by pinning visuals. So you go to a report, see an element which you want to track, which is kind of a high-level element which you want to track on your dashboard. If you hover over it or click it, you would see this pin button, and you can click on that and it will say pinned to dashboard. If you have multiple dashboards, you can have as many as you want, it'll pin it to the last dashboard that was active. Sounds kind of wonky, but it's really pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it. And you can go to other reports and go about clicking and pinning visuals. All of those go back and get pinned to your dashboard. You can even have reports which are connected to different data sets. So here the first set of reports was connected to AdventureWorks, and now I've skipped a few steps, but I've connected and retrieved my MailChimp data, and I can click and pin one of those elements as well. And this would get pinned back to your dashboard. So I've done some other work here. Essentially, once elements get pinned on your dashboard, you can freely move them around and resize them. Typically, people structure them to either scroll horizontally or vertically. In this case, mine is scrolling vertically, so I can click down and I can see different elements. Right, so that's your dashboard. Now on the dashboard, you notice there's also an Ask a Question, which is a natural language Q&A, which has been part of Power BI for a long time. So yeah, you or any user who has access to the dashboard can just type in a query and it'll formulate a response. We do have posts on the Q&A on our site, powerpivotpro.com. Search for those if you want to learn more about Q&A. But it works pretty intuitively for the user. You can also pin a Q&A answer onto your dashboard. So you can just click this button, and there you see the cost by subcategory. My Q&A got pinned to my dashboard. So almost fun to build. And once you have your dashboard built, you can review it in here, in your mobile app, in your web browser. We'll give you a look at the mobile app. And if something catches your eye, you can click on it and it'll go to the underlying elements. If it was a natural language Q&A, it'll open up that question so that you can modify it, ask some more questions. If it was pinned from a report, it'll open the underlying report so you can perhaps see more detail and examine it in some context. That's your dashboard. Now, of course, it's no fun if it's just for you. You want to be able to share the goodness with other users in your organization. Let's talk about sharing. The unit of sharing is dashboard. And the way to share is either if you have the dashboard open, you would have the share dashboard icon up top, or you can click on the ellipses and hit share. If you notice on reports, if you open a report, there's no share option. As I said, the unit of sharing is dashboard, so you have to go there to share it. However, when you share it, you do share the underlying reports and the data set. We'll talk more about that. But I'm going to click Share Dashboard, and here I can type in anybody in my organization. And the most frequently asked question that I get is, okay, how do I share outside my organization? That is a feature request which I believe is at least under consideration, if not already in progress. So I can type in anybody's name in my organization, click out this if I want, and click Share. I would like to point out 3 elements here. Is it working? One, you can either allow or disallow recipients from further sharing your dashboards. If you allow it, then they can share it on with 5 other users. You would still have control and be able to see who the dashboard has been shared with. This just, is a flexible option if this works for you. Now, I mentioned this, and yeah, this deserves some attention. So recipients will have access to the underlying data set and reports. So even though you're sharing a dashboard, and they'll see the dashboard, but they will still be able to click and open the underlying report. They'll still be able to kind of access the data set by asking questions and things like that. They're not going to be able to change or modify the data set, but at least initially, I didn't realize exactly what I was sharing. It feels like you're sharing the dashboard, but you're sharing a little more than that. And the Learn More, that's a link, and you can click that, and that has pretty good information about this in a little more detail. Last thing I'll point out is the shared with. This is what owners see. Other users wouldn't see it if they're sharing somebody else's dashboard. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. So now it says success. Your dashboard has been shared successfully, and my colleague, John in this case, gets an email saying, hey, check out this dashboard. They click to open it. Might prompt them to sign up or sign in. In this case, they have an account, so they just click sign in, select their account, and voila, they see the dashboard that you just shared. And there is a small icon, which we'll get used to, which indicates that, hey, this is something that was shared with you. You don't own it, and you would realize that can't really make any changes to it as well. As I said, they can click on any element, and it will open whatever was underlying that, a report or a Q&A question. They can also, since I had allowed resharing, they can further click Share Dashboard and share it with others. It does say, hey, who the dashboard owner is. That's a good reminder, but they can type in somebody else's name, so let's say Jane Doe, and click Share. And going back to the owner, I talked about shared with. This is what, if an owner clicked on shared with, this is what it looks like. You see everybody who has access to the dashboard, and you can take action as well. You can revoke action, cancel invites, and things like that. So that's sharing your dashboard. There are other ways of sharing as well through a distribution list, groups, content packs. Let's quickly talk about those. If your organization is using Office 365 for email, you can also type a distribution list in the invite. So instead of typing individual names, you can just say, hey, I want to share it with all my product team. And bam, each one of those has access. They would individually get an email saying, hey, this has been shared with you. And one thing that I've liked about Power BI, I'm not sure if it's new, but you can always just grab the URL from the dashboard. Whatever you're seeing, well, at least for dashboards, I'm not sure if it works for reports. But yeah, whatever view you're at, just grab the URL. You can just email it to anybody, and if they have access, it will simply open up for them. So if you've, shared it, given access to your product team, you can just send somebody a URL. No need to, click here and invite them again. You can say, hey, look at this dashboard, see what's going on. So that was sharing with the DL if you use Office 365 for email. Now you can also use groups, and that is more like team collaboration. It lets multiple users kind of work in the same sandbox, edit and make changes to the same data set, reports, and dashboards. Although it is a pro feature, so you have to have the Power BI Pro subscription to be able to use this. And the next one is content packs. Now that one is a pro feature as well. To create a content pack, you can go to the gear icon on the top right and select create content pack. Now from here, what are content packs? Content packs are bundles of dashboard, reports, and data sets. Which ones? Well, you choose that, right? So when you say click create content pack, you select who you are giving access to, specific groups or entire organization, give a title, give a description, choose an image, but really the key is you select the items that will be part of this bundle. Well, what then? Once you click publish, other users, let's say you've shared it with all of your organization, any other user in your organization, they'll click get data, and when they click my organization, they will see the published content pack. They'll see the published content pack and they can click on it, hit connect, and will import everything that was in there, the data sets, the reports, the dashboards. Now this user kind of gets a copy of the report and dashboard, and this is freely editable, right? So they can build off of this. What they cannot change is they cannot change the data set. They can't even refresh it. So the responsibility for that falls on the owner who originally built the content pack. Right, so hey, one flexible option. Another sharing option, well, which is kind of a sharing option, is through your mobile app, and we'll get a look at that next. Mobile app, how do you get it? Click on this download link, and there are lots of goodies here. Power BI for mobile is the one we're looking for now. Click on this, and you can download it for Windows Store, App Store, Google Play. I'm going to show you the Windows 8 Power BI app, but they all pretty much look alike. I think iPhone app is unique in the regard that it has alerting, so you can set up the, hey, alert me if profitability falls below 0%, something like that. So I open the Power BI app on my Windows 8 or your iPhone or your Android. You're going to have to sign in, but once you sign in, you get your dashboard reports and everything, right? And it has, it's going to have the UI functionality in Windows 8. Oops. In Windows 8, you can swipe and you get a menu and so forth. And you can open a dashboard. Then you can click on an element and it'll pop up, kind of show you a larger view. And you have these buttons up top to take additional action. You can annotate this. You can click annotate and you can draw, you can write some text. And with that annotation, you can then click share and send it to somebody. I think it's really handy. I wish, even the web had it. But yeah, so mobile apps, that is a pretty cool feature there. Let's talk about refresh. Clearly, no dashboard, whatever you build, you would ideally want that to be refreshed automatically. Now you have two options there. One is that you run the refresh in the cloud and schedule it in powerbi.com. Other option is that you refresh it locally, but then publish to Power BI, the easiest option. And the way to do that is using Power Update. This is a third-party tool. It's not by Microsoft. It's by us. We partnered with a development team to build that tool. And you can find more information on that on this URL, I'll bring you back to this. Show you online on powerbi.com. You can click on these ellipses, click schedule refresh, but most likely your data set would be connecting to one or the other local resource, not just a cloud resource. And in that case, you would probably need to use the Power BI Personal Gateway, which would allow Power BI in the cloud to connect down to your local on-premises resources, something within your organization sitting on your servers, possibly even on your laptop, a network storage, something like that. So that would be your cloud refresh option. Otherwise, try Power Update. This has a fully functional free version, so definitely check it out. The URL is again up there. Not only can you use it with powerbi.com, but otherwise even standalone. Even if you're not using any of the hosting options, you just have a bunch of Excel sheets with Power Pivot models or connected reports, you can use this to schedule automatic refreshes. Check it out, pput.pro Power Update, or just go to our site and search for Power Update. So great, so what's next? All of this goodness. Well, the good news is Power BI is evolving, and it's evolving fast. Gosh, these guys have not monthly, they have weekly releases. That's just unheard of, especially coming from Microsoft. And that makes us real happy. However, at times it's going to feel slow. You know, Power BI, you're going to grumble to yourself, gosh, Power BI is still evolving, it's still not there yet. It's going to feel rough around the edges, and you're going to say, oh gosh, Power BI team is delivering tons of features every month, just not the feature that I want. And it's going to be frustrating. Well, as any Excel user knows, the only way to do something right is to do it yourself. So I encourage you all to join the Power BI team and become the project managers for Power BI. Well, sort of. The good news is Power BI team really listens. I've heard that they get thousands of pieces of feedback and questions over each month, and they read each one of those. The way to get your voice heard is through their community site, which is support.powerbi.com. And once you get there, click on Power BI or use the URL down below, pput.pro, Power Idea. And here you can vote or submit new ideas, and we would especially like if you focus on Excel-friendly ideas. Somehow this site is very BI Pro heavy, and not even though there are a lot more Excel professionals out there than BI Pros, I think, a lot more. Yeah, this is very BI Pro focused if you look at the ideas so far. So go ahead, get some love for Excel ideas and Power BI. The two that are near and dear to us, which we feel are critical to this ecosystem of Excel and Power BI. One is coming in, bringing the Excel Power Pivot goodness into the new Power BI world, which is the ability to import an existing Power Pivot model into Power BI desktop. Should be pretty basic, not there yet. Hey, vote for the idea, and I'll egg this on in the development process. The other idea is on the other side of things, which is once you have your model up in the cloud, then regardless of how it was developed, I want me and maybe hundreds of other users in the organization to be able to connect to that model using Excel. Because hey, let's admit it, we are grid heads. Unless I can pivot it, chart it in Excel, sometimes it just doesn't even make sense to me. So I need to be able to do that, and that functionality is currently not there. I hear it's being worked upon. So we have compiled all of these and other good ideas on our forum. You can go to this URL. Oh, by the way, if you feel like, oh, that wasn't enough time for me to capture this URL, we'll try to share all the URLs which we showed you on the screen in a follow-up email. So you have those for safekeeping. And of course, you can also hunt through the recording once that's available. So vote Excel, and that has these top ideas, and if you look at the thread, you can submit other ideas as well, and you know, garner the votes from the Power Pivot Pro community. So hey, on your Power BI journey, there is help. Check out our site or drop us an email at empower@powerpivotpro.com. So we may not have been able to help you with life's big questions, but we hope we provided a good overview of Power BI and got you really excited about it. And if you haven't yet, certainly go on powerbi.com and sign up for free. That's a good way to get started. All right, well, that's it. So let me circle back to your questions.
We hope you enjoyed that recording. We had one whole additional hour of Q&A after this. And we do hope you join us for our future webinars.